All right, American Cultures 2. Today is going to be the first day of your final chapter for me, and that chapter is going to be on Vietnam. First off, hope you had a good Memorial Day weekend. Hope you had some fun. Hope you got outside. It's been beautiful. So just hope you enjoyed your weekend. But this is our final chapter. All right, I got one little interesting activity planned for you guys and some other things planned up with us. But like I said, this is it. This is our last chapter. I know this isn't the most ideal teaching situation for you guys, but we got a couple more weeks. All right, so let's get through this. Let's finish it up strong. All right. Now, it is on Vietnam. And as you can see, your first drill, like if you had an objective in drill, it says, come up with 7 words, phrases, or images that come to mind when you hear the word Vietnam. So, what do you think of when you think of Vietnam? A lot of people look at it as a war that we lost. We're going to get into that. Some people look at the counterculture, the hippies, the protests, those sorts of things. We also look at sometimes Americans were sometimes called the bad guys in this war, and we're going to look at why. Not if they were or weren't, but why they were called that. Fairly or unfairly, that's up for you guys to decide. So go down to the third slide there. Now this was from a news article, or I'm sorry, a magazine article talking about Vietnam. As you can see, I'm going to read it if you want to read along with me. It says, if language is memory, Vietnam is with us still. The longest, saddest, baddest war America ever fought. The only war we lost. The quagmire. Hell in a very small place. A war fought with the best of intentions and the worst of results. A war in which there were no winners at all. Black walls of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington record the names of 58,022 Americans who gave their lives in a useless war. 300,000 others were wounded, and hundreds of thousands more still bear the emotional scars of their sacrifice in the losing cause. Vietnam is tragedy, nothing more or less. And once again, that article was called We're Still Prisoners of War. It was in Newsweek, April 15th, 1985. Now, that is from someone that served in the war. All right, that isn't someone writing about the war, a historian or a college student, any of those things. That was a guy that fought in the war. Now, how does he feel about it? Well, look at some of the things he says, right? Vietnam is tragedy, nothing more, nothing less. There are no winners at all. Hell in a very small place. Doesn't seem like he would be the type of guy that thinks we should be there, right? But, we'll see. Take a look at slide 4. Slide 4 is a map. Now, you got to look closely on this. But if you look close, where is Vietnam? All right, that's a photo of Eastern Asia. And as you can see, you got Russia, you got Mongolia, you got China. Where's Vietnam, right? If you look close under China, you see it. It's a green strip. You have Vietnam, then you have Cambodia next to it, Laos, Thailand, Burma. Look how small Vietnam is. It's probably around the size of Texas, maybe. All right? Why would a country that small cause this much controversy, years and years of war, death, all those sorts of things? Why would that be the case? Well, it has something to do with what is known as the domino theory. And if you know what's going on here, and we kind of had to skip this year, but there's another war going on during Vietnam. Think about it. Do you know what it is? All right, it's the Cold War. Now, what's the Cold War about, right? Capitalism versus communism, right? Are we going to be able to stop the spread of communism? Now, when you look at Vietnam, it's a pretty small country, but it's kind of split in two, which we're going to get into here in a couple slides. You have North Vietnam, you have South Vietnam. They're at war with each other. They're kind of clashing. North wants the country to be communist. South wants the country to be capitalist, or at least siding with the United States, right? Now, the idea is, though, let's say they would become a communist country, right? Well, they're a small country. So even if they become communist, what's the big deal, right? Look at the Cold War is almost like a game of chess, right? For those of you guys that play chess, those little pieces you have, the little small ones, what are they called? They're called pawns, right? They're not the big guys. They can't do the most damage, but you still need them, right? And the more pawns you have, the better off you are because you're taking away the other team's pawns as well. Vietnam you can look at simply as like a pawn in that war, right? And if South Vietnam flips from capitalist to communist, well, the United States just lost a pawn. So they just lost a piece in their game. But not only did we lose a piece, Russia gained a piece. See, so it's very, very important. And the worry is if Vietnam, and like I said, if you're looking at the map when I'm discussing this, if Vietnam falls to capitalism, or I'm sorry, to communism, well, look what's next to it. Maybe then Cambodia is going to become communist. Maybe Laos, Thailand, Burma. And that's the fear. That's the worry that if one of these countries fall to communism, they're all going to fall. Okay? Now, take a look. Slide number 5 under that background. Once again, that's like I said, it's called the domino theory. The idea is if one Southeast Asian nation falls to communism, then they're all going to fall, like dominoes. One domino falls, boom, 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 a whole bunch of other ones fall. The belief, according to the United States, was that a communist takeover of Vietnam posed a threat to Cambodia, Laos, Burma, and Thailand. Okay? Next slide down, pre-U.S. Let's take a look. What was this country like? What was going on there before we got involved? Before the United States sent hundreds of thousands of troops into Vietnam? What was going on? Well, in July of 1954, something known as the Geneva Accords were created. And what the Geneva Accords were, because at this time, Vietnam's fighting each other. All right? They can't get along. It's it's a mess. So what is the Geneva Accords? Well, what it essentially does is it makes Vietnam into 2 countries. All right? And they have really original names for these 2 countries, right? It's like, you're a new country. What do you want to be called? North Vietnam. And the South was like, well, what do you want to be called? You can pick up any name you want. And they're like, haha, South Vietnam. Very original names, right? But either way, North Vietnam is a communist country. And it is led by a guy named Ho Chi Minh. All right? South Vietnam is the anti-communist country. Not necessarily capitalist, but supported by the United States nonetheless, right? They are led by a man named Ngo Dinh Diem. All right? Ho Chi Minh leads the north. Ngo Dinh Diem leads the south. All right? Next slide. Slide number 7. U.S. involvement. By 1960, now we're not really heavily involved yet. 1960 is the year Kennedy becomes president, or he's elected president. Takes over in 61. But he's elected in 60. There are 675 U.S. military advisors in South Vietnam. They're not fighting, they're not doing anything like that, but they're there, to help the South Vietnam and kind of train them, if you will, as far as like if battles or things are really going to start raging. Now, Kennedy doesn't like war, doesn't like the idea of it, even though he did fight in World War II, but he is determined to stop the spread of communism at all costs, right? So, he doesn't want war because he kind of knows that if we really get heavily involved in Vietnam, we're not going to win. Not we're going to lose because they're better, but it's the type of battle that's going to be fought, which we're going to get into tomorrow, is a type of battle that we probably can't win this battle, right? But either way, by the end of 1963, when Kennedy is assassinated, the U.S. military now has over 16,000 troops in Vietnam. Okay, so the number is escalating. Background on Diem, the leader of South Vietnam. This guy's on our side, right? This is the guy we're fighting with. Not the best of leaders. All right? So here's what's going on. South Vietnam is primarily a Buddhist country, right? Well, Ngo Dinh Diem's a Catholic. All right? So the leader is a Catholic and the country's Buddhist. Now, it's not that big of a deal. All right, he's a Catholic. The rest of the country's Buddhist. No big deal, right? Problem was, he insisted that citizens of South Vietnam, if you were a Buddhist, you now convert to Catholicism. Now, I don't know what religions you guys practice, if you practice any or whatever it is, but people take their religion very seriously. And if you tell someone all of a sudden, you've been a Buddhist your whole life, you need to be a Catholic now. Or, you've been a Catholic your whole life now, well, now you need to be Jewish. People don't like that, right? Once you're in your religion and you believe what you believe, that's it. End of discussion for the most part, right? So his people didn't like it very much that he just essentially told them, I don't care that you're a Buddhist, you're now a Catholic. So his approval rating and popularity in his country, pretty low at this point, all right? So South Vietnamese leaders get together and they actually assassinate Diem. Diem ends up getting killed and his government is overthrown and the South Vietnamese military is put in charge. Now, on the surface, the people of South Vietnam are like, good, we don't like him anyway. But now you got to remember, this is the end of 1963. This is the same time Kennedy gets killed. So you have Kennedy dead and you have Diem dead. These are the 2 guys that while they're going to make sure South Vietnam doesn't fall to communism, they also don't want a full-fledged war because they know it's just going to be hell, right? Well, those 2 main people stopping this from seriously escalating, they're now dead. And that ends up causing some problems. So, slide number 8, where it says Johnson commits to containment. Now that Kennedy is dead, Lyndon B. Johnson is now president of the United States. He has a much more hawkish, like war hawkish approach to Vietnam than Kennedy did. And he was determined to stop the spread of communism. And he felt that South Vietnam was weak and needed to be defended. Now, in that aspect, he is correct. It was weak, it did need to be defended. One of the hardships of Vietnam, and one of the reasons we had such a hard time, was not only were we fighting the North Vietnamese troops, right? We knew who our enemy was. We were also fighting another group, and that group you may have heard of. They were called the Viet Cong. All right, they would be called VC, or the United States had a code name for them, Victor Charlie. They would call them Victor Charlie because of VC, Viet Cong, Victor Charlie. If you've ever seen Forrest Gump, when Forrest is in Vietnam, he's like, we were always looking for a guy named Charlie. That's who Charlie was. All right, it was the Viet Cong. It wasn't just some guy named Charlie like Forrest was looking for. It was the Viet Cong. These were communist guerrillas in the South. Now, if you know anything about guerrilla fighters, what does that mean, right? It means they're not wearing regular uniforms. They're not necessarily in a regular army. They're hiding. And where do they hide? They hide in the jungles. They hide in tunnels. Sometimes they hide in plain sight. Now, you may be saying, how can they hide in plain sight? Well, they dress like civilians, right? So if you're in a market or you're just patrolling the streets of South Vietnam, they're dressed like regular people. And then all of a sudden they run up with a hand grenade and they throw it at you or pull out a gun and shoot and kill you. This causes problems. Imagine if you're a U.S. soldier at this point, right? And you're marching through these streets, you're patrolling, you're doing whatever you got to do. You may have a hard time trusting people, all right? And because there may be someone dressed like a civilian, but they're just rubbing you the wrong way. They're freaking you out for some reason. And could be a chance where you maybe end up shooting somebody or killing somebody that really wasn't your enemy. But you don't know. What chance do you take? And that was the problem. Anytime we fought the actual North Vietnamese military, we won pretty much every battle because our militaries were far superior. Our weaponry was far superior. It was when we got into these battles with the Viet Cong that we had our problems because we didn't know who the enemy was. All right? So, the Viet Cong begins to gain popularity in South Vietnam. Well, now wait a minute. They don't want to be communists, so how is the Viet Cong becoming popular there? Well, some young South Vietnamese supported them, and even if they didn't, maybe they were forced to. Okay? You could support them out of fear, right? You could say, if I oppose the Viet Cong and I speak out against them, they may kill me, and they would. So the support in South Vietnam, in some aspects, was because it was legit. They legit supported them. In other aspects, they supported them just straight out of fear. All right? Now, the leader of the North, Ho Chi Minh, they aided the Viet Cong in South Vietnam with money, weaponry, all sorts of stuff. So not only were they carrying out these guerrilla attacks on their own, they were getting financed by North Vietnam as well. All right, last slide for today, Gulf of Tonkin. Here's the deal. Lyndon Johnson wants a full-scale invasion of Vietnam. But he also knows the American people probably aren't going to be for it. Why? Well, Americans are generally all for war. But when? Under what circumstances are we all for war? Well, let's look at Pearl Harbor. Let's look at 9/11. When we are directly attacked or when we think a direct attack is coming, right? Other than that, for the most part, Americans generally aren't gung-ho of going to war if we're not attacked or we don't feel we're in danger. Enter the Gulf of Tonkin. In 1964, President Johnson says that North Vietnam torpedoed U.S. destroyers in the Gulf of Tonkin. All right. However, doesn't really look like that happened. All right. Now, whether Johnson got false information or his advisors got false information, whatever it is, but you know, the stories got out that North Vietnamese ships were torpedoing U.S. ships in the Gulf of Tonkin. Didn't really go down that way, but it didn't matter because Johnson says, this is it. We got to really ramp up our military force in Vietnam because they're torpedoing our people now. So in 1964, the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution is passed, which is a 1964 congressional resolution authorizing President Johnson to take military action in Vietnam. This is what starts us to get heavily involved in this conflict, to really get us to where we have hundreds of thousands of troops in Vietnam. All right. Everything I just went over with you today is a very short and Cliff Notes version of how we got into Vietnam. All right. Starting tomorrow, we're going to look at what life was like for us in Vietnam. All right. Once again, hope you had a great holiday weekend. Last chapter. All right. We're almost done, guys. Let's get through this. Let's finish up strong. All right. See you guys tomorrow. Have a good day. Bye.